Why don't we start with what Jay Powell had to say this week, because obviously that impacts the banks and the financials pretty largely. He said no negative interest rates. Maybe that's the one positive thing the banks could take out of a lot of negative things he had to say.
Well, obviously I agree with that. I mean, negative interest rates are counter to everything we are as a capitalistic society. I mean, it just the thought of it. Okay, borrow money and I'll pay you. It makes no sense at all. It hasn't worked in Japan. It hasn't worked in Germany. I thought the chairman was totally correct, and it's a really bad idea. We have to get back to work. We have to do it safely. We have to do it as carefully as possible. But any future legislation should come with a real high bar for the tort lawyers, that if businesses are brave enough to open and do it smart and do it carefully and are sensitive as much as humanly possible to this pandemic, they've got to be able to be assured that they're not going to spend a lot of money in court and have a lot of distractions. So I think the Fed chairman is going to try to do everything he can. Let's face it. I mean, the Fed can push the market, but it can't push the economy forever. And so we have to get back to work. I don't know exactly how we can do that, but it seems to me that closing schools and shutting down is going to do far more damage than the pandemic is doing.
Hey, Jimmy, this is very different than the financial crisis when the banks had so many issues. How are the banks situated this time around?
Well, you're right. It's night and day different. In 2008, and not really just the banks, but all the lending vehicles, there was just too much credit. There were people buying 4 and 5 and 6 homes that couldn't afford one. And just, interest rates are going to come down. Real estate prices are going to go up. That's how I make money. And the banks, or the lenders, and it wasn't just the banks, are really the cause of a lot of excess credit. And maybe they weren't the cause, but they were an enabler to the crisis. This is entirely different this time around. The banks can very much be a solution. And I talk, obviously, Becky, as you know, to bank CEOs every day. And it seems to me that for the most part, they feel they kind of remind me of a group that's sort of battened up, ready for a hurricane, ready for a real storm. And so far, it hasn't been as bad as it could have been. So I think that they're cautious. I think to date, it's been better than people might have thought. But we have a long slog, and they're in much better shape, and they're much more of a part of a solution now than in the 2008 situation.
That's the U.S. banks. European banks never really got their houses in order the way our banks did. What do you hear about banks there?
Well, Europe is a mess. I mean, it's been a mess for a long period of time, and it doesn't seem like it's going to get better real soon. So I think, the United States has got real challenges ahead, significant long-term challenges that this is going to cause. But by comparison, it seems to me that Europe is way behind and in much worse shape. And Asia seems to be getting through it faster. They were earlier. Actually, Becky, a client sent me a clip. You and I did an interview in February when you were out at Pebble Beach, and it was the beginning of this. Mm-hmm. And he said, I had said that whatever we think it is, multiply it by 10. And he said, you were right. I said, no, I wasn't right. We should have multiplied it by 1,000, because that's really what has happened. And Europe was worse going into it. They'll be slower coming out, and they're going to be worse coming out. But I'm more worried about the United States right now. I guess maybe that's the wrong attitude. But we need to do this. I mean, your last guest, I think he said something pretty good. He said a Democratic heart and a Republican hand. I kind of like that. We need to get together and figure this out.
Hey Jimmy, a couple bank questions. Do you have any worry that this really trickles back up to the banks in any meaningful way? I mean, so far the banks have obviously been in good shape. They're in much better shape than they were in 2008. But, as we start to see some of these big retail bankruptcies, as you're going to start to see, I imagine, rent and other things start and mortgages either not get paid or get renegotiated, what that really means. and who, to the degree that there are banks out there that are susceptible to that, how do you think about that landscape, and who should we be focused on or not?
Well, Andrew, I don't think it's really a thought, and it's nice to talk to you, by the way, but I don't think it's a thought. It's a reality. There is no way in the world that this is not going to affect negatively banks, okay? It is 100% going to, all right? The reality is, and I've said it on your guys' shows a lot, you buy books, you buy banks at sort of below book, and you sell them at 2.5 times book. And the reality is right now, the banks are ahead. They're telling you that, they're down 30, 40, 50%. Sort of you look at the third quarter of 19, whereas the tech stuff is up 10 or 15%. And that sort of tells you that's a real good view of where the world is. Now, I'm not saying the banks can't do better from this level. I happen to think that they will. I happen to think there's more risk to short some of these stronger, better banks at down 50 or 40 or 50% and trading at 60, 70, 80% of book than there is. It's just that book, it's not a matter that, okay, they're down at 70, they're going to go back to book. There is going to be a new book. And at that point, and I think there's a cushion to invest now from how much they've come down to book. But banks are absolutely going to be affected by it. I think it makes sense to buy strong banks. And, I don't want to say which one, Andrew, I can't do that. But obviously areas that are less susceptible to it. I mean, banks that have a lot of exposure to energy, that's going to be a trouble for a while. Banks that are very, very involved, that are big restaurant lenders, they're going to have problems. But everyone is going to have problems. Everyone in the country, because this is going to be a long slog. You don't have 40 million people go out of work and then 40 million people come back to work. So we're going to deal with an environment very different than we had for several years. It's just that I think that the price, how far they've come down, I think if we can get back to work, we can make up some of those losses more quickly. The longer we stay out, the worse it's going to be. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to the health risks. I understand that. And so people that are like me, that are old and overweight and used to smoke cigars should be careful. All right. But there's the younger people that seem to be less vulnerable to this, not 100%, but far less vulnerable. They have got to get a right to go out and get back to work and do something.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Joe. I'm going to try and tear myself away from the Russian table tennis tournament this weekend on Sunday. But it's possible there's actually a sporting event that, thanks to you, and it's going to be for charity, and it's going to be on the best TV station, too. It's going to be on NBC. And it's going to be like the greatest course. Has there ever been a camera on that course for a tournament, Jimmy, at Seminole?
Not allowed. We have people shot if they took a picture, in years past at Seminole. So
I don't.
No, this is historic in a sense to Seminole because we've been very low profile and camera shy, and maybe some of my past presidents are either rolling in their grave or unhappy with me, and I would understand that. But the reality of it is, we want to do something, and the people you really ought to thank are Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, and Matt Wolff. They want to do something. They're obviously not getting paid to do this. NBC's not making any money. Seminole is not making any money. But we're really going to try to raise a lot of money, millions of dollars, for people that are going to need it, because this economy is desperate right now. And we're going to try to ease as much pain as we can. It's something Seminole wouldn't normally do. I thought, NBC felt it would add to the panache of the event if they could host it at Seminole. I couldn't say no. I agree with you, NBC sports coverage. They cover Notre Dame football, as you know, and that's obviously the most important thing other than this tournament this weekend, Joe. But I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Jimmy,
I think people will enjoy it.
Why couldn't get anyone better than McIlroy, Johnson, and Ricky Fowler and Matt? I mean, what happened? Everybody, That's a pretty good
Well,
group.
we wanted to get all Florida residents.
Yeah.
We wanted to get guys that supported our pro member. Not that we had much say in it. Rory has won the pro member. Ricky's won it 3 times. Dustin has played in it 7 times. Matt played in it. So we appreciate pros that have been supportive to our pro member event. And, I don't know that there's a bigger star in golf than Rory McIlroy, in my opinion. I mean,
Right.
he's
You
the
must
Bobby
know someone
Jones
at
of our era.
Seminole. You must know someone at Seminole to be able to do that. That's really exciting. It's fantastic. 2-6. I'm going to let Becky go there. But, yeah, I don't know who you know. You got some pull down there. Maybe the guy that runs the whole place you might have a relationship with yourself. 2-6. 2-6, right?
2-6 Sunday.
Okay. God, it's something to watch? I don't know what I'm going to do.
Live golf.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to act.
We won't have any fans, and we're going to be completely consistent with the COVA world that we're in. It's going to be fun.
Conjure up some wind. If there is there ever not.
I'd love some wind.
Is there ever not? But that thing is.
I wish there was.
That eats me alive. It makes me know I suck when I play that place. Anyway, go ahead, Beck.
Hey, Jimmy, you mentioned Notre Dame, and you're on the board of trustees at Notre Dame. So 2 questions for you. Are kids going to be going back to school? Will Notre Dame have classes? And will you be playing Notre Dame football in the fall?
Well, I get what I deserve for bringing that up. Becky.
I was going to ask you anyway.
Yeah, okay, good. Now it made me feel better. Unlike Seminole, I'm not in charge of Notre Dame. I am merely a voice and hopefully a cheerleader. We at Notre Dame believe that on-campus education is really, really important. The relationships that you build, the time you spend in the dorms, the time you spend in person. So probably more than most schools, we don't think that you can just do it online and get the full value of it. So I would say that from our administration, our chairman, our executive committee, our trustees, we would really want to try to do it with as little risk as possible, be as careful as possible. But I think we're going to want to get to school sooner. I love what Mitch Daniels has done at Purdue. I applaud him. I think Indiana's got a good governor. He seems to want to get back to work. So if we can do it safely, we will do it. And I think, and that won't be a decision that I'll make. We have different rules there than we do at Seminole. But if we can do it safely, we'll do it. And I hope that we can. And we won't play football unless we can do it safely and have all the students back.